Why? Would a woman despised and driven out by an entire city become the only living doorway inside Jericho? Why would they gamble their lives on the mercy of a woman society has already thrown away Rahab? And what could make a thin scarlet cord in a window strong enough to stop the sword of destruction? Stay to the very end, because the moment Jericho collapses still hits like an earthquake. Sometimes the greatest faith begins in the last place anyone would ever look. After Moses dies, the wilderness still clings to their cloaks, the smell of hot dust, the desert wind lashing faces like blades. But Israel doesn't stand still anymore. They camp on the eastern bank of the Jordan. Across the water lies Canaan, and rising ahead like a thorn in the road stands the city of Jericho. Its gates open and shut with the blast of alarm horns. Torches burn red on the watchtowers. Guards are everywhere, eyes sweeping like hawks. The entire city has heard Israel's name like thunder. A sea split in two, victories no one can explain. A people who walk through desert wasteland and somehow do not die. Inside the command tent, Joshua stares down at a map of Canaan under the trembling glow of an oil lamp. The flame flickers, throwing shadows across the face of a new leader, one who must keep walking when Moses is no longer here. He has no staff who once parted water. He has only God's promise and a very human fear. One wrong step and the whole nation pays. Attacking Jericho won't be simple. That city is a locked stone fist gripping every path forward. To advance, Joshua needs to know how it breathes from within. So he chooses 2 men, no trumpet, no announcement. He speaks low, "Go, look over the land, especially Jericho." Night falls. On the stone steps leading into the city, their footsteps must be so light they barely dare to inhale. Each gust slipping through the cracks of the wall makes the torches snap and hiss like a warning. They catch the shadow of a patrol passing by, hear metal clink against metal, then watch it vanish into a corner of darkness. In that moment, they understand Jericho doesn't just guard its gates, it guards fear itself. And if they're exposed, there will be no trial, no defense, only rope and a quiet death behind stone. And in a house built against the city wall, Rahab hears those same sounds. She knows a single accusation would mark her as a traitor, but she also knows the stories of Israel's God have softened Jericho's heart with terror. That night, amid the smell of drying flax and the leftover heat trapped in roof tiles, Rahab chooses to trust instead of panic. She presses a hand to her chest, feels her heartbeat, then shuts the door like she's shutting every road back. The spies slip through brush, step onto cold ground, insects humming in the darkness. The Jordan's mud still clings to their skin, mixing with wild grass and sweat. They move toward Jericho, avoiding the guards' torches, skipping the wide streets, cutting through narrow alleys of shadow. They need a place to hide a door that can open without the whole city noticing. And they find a house along the wall where strangers come and go easily. A woman opens the door. Her name is Rahab. Scripture calls her a sinful woman, a name people whisper behind her back, a life lived pressed against the city wall, closest to collapse and closest to escape. That night, Rahab takes one look at the 2 strangers and understands. They are not ordinary travelers. She doesn't ask many questions, she lets them in. The door shuts. For a heartbeat, it feels safe. But Jericho is a city of eyes and ears. Rumors run faster than feet. Not long after, heavy boots strike stone. A knock slams into the door like a hammer. A voice cuts through the night. "Bring out the men who came to your house. They came to spy out the land." Torchlight spills through the cracks. Smoke and iron, burning pitch and sharpened steel flood the room. The small house feels like it's being crushed. The spies lock eyes, fingers brushing the hilts of their knives, throats dry as sand. If they're caught, they die. And if they die, Jericho learns Israel is coming, and Joshua's plan shatters like a clay jar. Rahab does not tremble the way they expect. She leads them up to the roof. Bundles of flax lie spread out to dry, rough fibers, an earthy, bitter smell rising in the wind. She drags the flax over their bodies, burying them in plain sight, and whispers, "Don't move, don't breathe loudly, don't make a sound." Then she goes down and opens the door to face the soldiers. Torchlight paints her face, revealing eyes that have seen too much of life. They demand answers. Rahab replies with a calm that feels almost cold. "Yes, men came to me, but I didn't know who they were. When it grew dark and the city gate was about to close, they left. Go quickly, you can catch them." A single sentence, a deliberate misdirection. The soldiers rush off like hunting dogs, sprinting toward the Jordan. Footsteps fade into the distance. Then the city gate slams shut with a brutal final thud, like a verdict. Up on the roof, the spies lie under the flax, listening as the danger drains away. They live by a breath. When the night finally settles, Rahab returns. The wind is dry and cold. She looks at them and says what they never expected, an open confession. "I know the Lord has given you this land. Terror of you has fallen on us because we heard how the Lord dried up the Red Sea before you when you came out of Egypt." Then Rahab speaks from her own wound, her family. "Please swear to me. Since I've shown you kindness, show kindness to my father's house. Save my father and mother, my brothers and sisters, and all who belong to them." The spies exchange a look, then answer with a covenant heavy as stone. "Our lives for yours. If you do not report our mission when the Lord gives us the land, we will deal kindly and faithfully with you." But they set terms so the promise won't be lost in the chaos of war. Rahab must tie a scarlet cord in the window, the very window she'll use to lower them down. And when Israel attacks, she must bring her entire family into that house. Whoever stays inside will be safe. Whoever steps outside, his blood will be on his own head. Rahab nods. No crowd witnesses it, only moonlight and wind, but the covenant is sealed. The night grows deeper. Rahab takes a rope, knots it tight to something secure inside, and drops it over the wall. Jericho's stones are high, rough, and icy under the hand. One by one, the spies climb down each slide, a tightening fist around the heart. When they reach the ground, Rahab leans out and speaks fast. "Run to the hill country and hide for 3 days, or the pursuers will find you." The two disappear into the darkness, racing toward the hills. For 3 days they stay hidden. When the hunters return empty-handed, the spies slip back, cross the Jordan, and find Joshua. They deliver the most important sentence of all: "The whole land is melting in fear because of us." Jericho has tall walls, but its heart has already begun to collapse. Back inside the city, Rahab waits for Judgment Day with one sign hanging in the open: the scarlet cord. It isn't a charm. It's the mark of a promise, a signal in the middle of disaster. This one belongs to the covenant. That red recalls the night Israel painted lamb's blood on their doorframes in Egypt so destruction would pass them by. In Jericho, it's a window instead of a door, but the color is the same, and the question is the same: who will believe and who will stay under the covering? Rahab gathers her family and warns them, "Stay inside, don't go out, even if shouting erupts, even if the walls begin to shake." This isn't just a survival plan, it's a step of faith. And across the Jordan, Joshua prepares. The days ahead will not look like any battle they've ever fought. Jericho will not fall by ladders or siege engines. It will fall by something stranger: obedience. The story pauses here, but the scarlet cord still hangs swaying in the wind like a reminder: God can use the most rejected person to open the way for the greatest purpose. Next episode, when dawn breaks over Jericho, Israel won't charge the walls. They will circle them, and the stones everyone believed were unbreakable will begin to tremble under judgment. Like and subscribe so you don't miss the next Bible stories.